Have you been struggling with merging spirituality and finances? Today, we're going to bridge that gap so you can have passion, purpose, and profits. Welcome to Thriving Launch with Louise Congdon and Kamala Chambers, the show for heart-centered entrepreneurs who want it all.
5 days a week, we bring you different segments to inspire you to live a life of freedom. We interview the leading experts in the field of business, health, and love. Be sure to check out Training Tuesdays, where we give you a clear action plan to grow your own business.
Do you have a product or service that you would like to sell online? Or maybe you've been thinking about it, but you're reserved to do it because you need a website, you need complicated systems, and you need to spend money? Well, I've created a completely free course that teaches you how to use Facebook in a purely organic way. This means no ads and no money are needed. You can use Facebook completely free. So head on over to thrivinglaunch.com, opt into my Profit from Social Media course. I'm going to teach you the free methods to using Facebook to make money today.
Today we're here with Christopher John Stubbs. He's a coach. He's a powerful public speaker. We had the pleasure of meeting him. This guy has a message that I'm so excited to share with you.
All right, Christopher, are you ready to launch?
Yes, sir. Let's do this.
Fantastic. I'm really excited to talk to you about today. I really feel this is a special opportunity to talk to everybody who's listening, because I know that a lot of you are really spiritually minded. You have big hearts, and you're wondering, what is that cross between this big heart and this big gift that you have, and really monetizing that? And maybe there's something holding you back. Before the show, Chris and Kamala and I, we were all talking about this thing where there's a lot of people that have these gifts and they're spiritual and they're fantastic people. I've been one of those people for my whole life, and I know that for most of my life, I struggled with money, and I struggled with money being okay. I struggled with being spiritual and yet also being somebody who ran a business. And Chris, I'm just excited to dive into this content because I know that this is going to be a gift for a lot of our listeners.
It's a topic that I'm very passionate about, and I'm happy to be on with such phenomenal people as yourselves who are sharing such a powerful message. And I think it's very relevant and key that we get this message out, because there's so many people out there who have tremendous gifts, talents, abilities, and such huge hearts that could truly change the way business is done, could truly change the way political systems and countries operate, could completely change the social agreements that are not working. But because the power is currently in the hands of, and that's kind of not quite a true statement, but there's so much power in the hands of people that have a lot of money, but maybe not so much heart or social consciousness. And I think that one of the greatest ways we can affect change in today's world is to put some more power, not power in the sense of the word of I'm all powerful, ego power, but just the ability to influence things. I mean, how many of us with granted enough money, how much more would we all be doing? Would we be founding schools or whatever we're passionate about? Maybe teaching people how to feed themselves or freeing sex slaves. Like, how much more of a difference could we make on all fronts if we had a lot more resources in the hands of the people with passion, with purpose, with consciousness, with heart? So yes, I'm excited.
One thing I'm really curious to hear from you is, what do you think it's going to take to bridge the gap between where people are in the state of wanting to give, but not wanting to get caught up in the money game?
Great question. So I think, very common to have actually a resistance to the money game. It's very common for people who discover maybe a spiritual path or, have this deep sense of love for people and come from a place of the heart. Many times those same people are very resistant of money. And oftentimes that's because they feel trapped by it. I find, going to a deeper level of transformation around this, that there's actually a lot of hurt and powerlessness around it. And so rather than owning, yes, I feel sad, I feel scared about money, I feel angry around the struggles I've had around money, and kind of getting to the root of healing that unhealed stuff around money, instead what we do is we project onto it, kind of like screw money, screw the government, screw the system, maybe, I'm going to just go off grid and see how much I can survive as a minimalist, when I think really the solution is, we get to figure out how to stop being consuming and trying, consumerism of like, let me try to fill the void within by purchasing products and things like that temporarily give me a high. That's all great to simplify things and learn to fulfill the void within. And the flip side is how much value I provide in the world is key, not only to my success financially, but also to my fulfillment internally. So very critical to align the passion, the purpose, and the profits in those ways. Can you bring me back to the original question? Because I kind of brought it off on a couple little side streets there.
I like those 3 P's, by the way, bring the passion, the purpose, and the profits together. I'm gonna have to start using that. The 3 P's.
Epic. Yes. Dude.
I'm down with OPP or PPP.
I'm down with the 3PP.
Well, one thing that I see happening is there's this discrepancy, this gap between maybe there's people who get overly focused on the money, which is easy to do. It's easy to get overly, even when you set out with a good cause or a good heart and mind, maybe the money aspect takes over. And then there's the other side of it that we just want to serve. We just want to do good in the world. We just want to give to people and help. And I'm wondering, like, that gap can be so far sometimes, the different types of people there are. But is there a middle road that can help both parties come together and walk in more balance?
Yeah, where my mind goes to right now as you ask that is some key principles that I think people really get attuned to. So one, the typical approach is, how can I make money? How can I make money? How can I make money? And when
my mind used to be constantly stuck on that. Money was such an issue for me. It's been one of the biggest hurdles in my life. And again, this is why I think this conversation is so important, especially for all of you thriving launchers, because I know so many of us have had this issue in our lives.
Yes, and more yes to that. So when we shift that question from how can I make money to how can I provide the most value, and maybe even amplify that by saying, who can I serve? What problems can I solve? How can I provide the most value while also gaining the greatest level of true fulfillment, like the deepest level of true spiritual and emotional fulfillment that I get paid double time. I get paid financially, and I get paid emotionally, mentally, spiritually. Like I love what I do so much that I would do it whether I got paid or not. And because of that, and because it falls within my zone of genius, because it aligns with my passion and purpose, I automatically become the best at that, and I'm automatically able to provide substantially greater value than I could in any other way. So like if you guys were just here to help people make money, that's all great and grand. It helps them get some material possessions and do fun things and have some choice. But at the end of the day, or at the end of their life, if it didn't also edify them in some deeper way, you didn't provide the maximum value. So maximum value for me would be, how can I serve them both temporally and spiritually, not just one or the other? So the two things there are, first off, let me focus on what value I can provide in a way that I absolutely love. And then the second piece to this equation is all about how much can I receive? And this is an issue that most people, especially if they have a fundamentalist Christian background or any other type of background where they were taught, the value and importance of selflessness, and they were shunned for anything that represented selfishness in any way, then there's a lot of social conditioning around, those words and those attitudes. And the key here is, if you want to truly thrive, you must be amazing at giving as well as amazing at receiving. And so practicing, at the end of the day, really, there's only one problem in all of existence, which we call the upper limits problem of how good can we stand it? How much good can we handle before we subconsciously sabotage it?
And before you continue, I want to bring everybody on the same page, because maybe you have or haven't listened to the interview with Dr. Gay Hendricks yet, but in that interview, we really dive into the upper limits. And just briefly to explain it to you, and you're welcome after this to go listen to that episode. But the upper limits is essentially that we all have this thermostat or this ceiling on how happy we can get. And once we reach that limit or that ceiling, we don't really want to go above it. And at some point we self-sabotage, consciously or unconsciously. We sabotage our happiness or our success because we can't accept anymore. And so the work of the upper limits, which we really go into Gay Hendricks with, is how do we basically move that bar up so it's a little higher? How do we raise that ceiling so we're not living in a one-story house of happiness, but maybe a two-story house, or we can use whatever analogy you want. You can use a thermostat, because it's not about the size of your house. It's just about your ability to have a larger capacity to accept more success and happiness. And I just wanted to say that so that we're all on the same page. Go ahead, Christopher.
Thank you for adding that in. Dr. Gay Hendricks is amazing, and he's the guy that I learned this concept from, and I really am glad that you guys interviewed him previously and that the listeners have access to that. And I highly recommend, guys, get over there and listen to that for sure. It'll change your life. And to expand on that further, ultimately, what I was going to was, that's the whole game. That's the whole game. It's like, hey, how much every day from now on for the rest of my life can I expand into a greater capacity to give and receive love and positive energy? Now, that can mean more money. So you may notice a pattern of, you make a certain amount of money, and then when you outperform that substantially, the next thing you know is you have a big downfall. You may experience it as a mindset in you that kind of has the subconscious attitude of, oh man, life's really good right now. Watch out, something bad's coming around the corner. So many people live in that as a belief system and a norm. And instead, there's an opportunity now to shift into, okay, stuff's amazing. And chances are I'm going to hit an upper limit soon. And instead of, getting overwhelmed or trying to avoid or resist it, say, you know what, the good news is I'm hitting an upper limit, because if I handle this properly, that means I'm going to bust through to the next level of how much goodness I can handle. So key would be to breathe, slow down a little bit, and place a lot of awareness on what comes up next, so that you navigate it with ease, with flow, with precision, so that instead of going back into the same old sabotage patterns, you can learn from previous mistakes and create a completely new result, so that every outcome in every area of your life continuously ascends or climbs and goes higher and higher and higher, to see it, have a game of how good can I handle life being.
I absolutely love it. How good can I handle it? That is fantastic. I think it's such an important piece to being able to really manifest the money that we want and create the life that we want, and have both, the 3 P's: the passion, the purpose, and the profits. Yeah.
One of the things too that came up for me is, Well, now I lost my train of thought. I really did. I hate it when that happens, but I guess I wasn't supposed to say it. I don't know.
Awesome.
Well, one thing that I'd love to hear a little bit more for you while we're waiting for that brain gap to the little interlude there. One thing I'd love to hear more from you is, what is your practical way of incorporating this? I know we've talked a lot about concepts, but what's something that we could all do every day?
And here it is, actually. I remember now. I was yesterday I was being interviewed. I had 9 different interviews that I was on, 9 different shows yesterday. And this question kept coming up about my journey and how I got to where I was in about a 2-year period, going from homeless, sleeping in a car and in a park and on couches. How did I go from that space to where I'm at now, where I get to travel the world? I have a really wonderful partner. We have a successful show and podcast and business. How did I get there? And I remember in several of the interviews, I said, I have this little calendar that I send out to people so that they can schedule a meeting with me. And I used a free version of this calendar. And not too long ago, they sent me an email saying, did you know that in a 12-month period, starting from this date to this date, you had 350 plus calls used with our little link. And that to me just blew me away. I had 350 phone calls that were all completely free coaching, because when I started, when I was homeless, I didn't really know what the heck I was doing, but I knew that anytime I saw somebody with a problem, I would say, hey, let's hop on a call and I'll try to help you, or I'll make an introduction. And that was over 350 calls of free time, minimum 20 minutes. And for me, I look back on that and I go, well, I was developing myself like crazy, and I was giving away the very thing that I knew how to do, and eventually that did turn into profit.
That is an amazing story. I really appreciate sharing that. And that's a key right there, is most people, when it comes to providing that value and having it turn into dollars, they think, first I need to get more breakthroughs. First I need to have more information. First I need to, have a degree or a certificate or a certification, or, who am I to share my voice, my ideas? Who am I to claim anything and help anybody? And it's along the lines of I think it was Marianne Williamson, and then they also accredit it to Nelson Mandela or whatever, but who am I not to, right? So who am I not to shine? Who am I not to serve? Like, who is anybody not to serve? One of the most tremendous things we could do would be to reach out. Now, that don't mean you just immediately claim, I'm awesome, look at me, hire me because I'm the best. But if you just did what you did and said, look, I don't know, let's just hop on and let me see if I can help. And if all that was generating ideas for them and having a listening ear, that was tremendous value. So anyone can begin serving now. And if you adopt the mindset, instead of waiting till you're perfect, instead of waiting till you have the perfect packaging, instead of waiting till you have all your logo, like many people go, okay, I'm going to launch this business. Let me get my logo built out and all my, all this stuff. And they spend a year developing out this stuff just to discover that maybe the marketplace doesn't even give a shit about what you're bringing to the marketplace. And so the real thing is, if you love yourself enough, you just start being you and serving from wherever you're at, and your ability to serve and provide value and solve problems grows through the process. And you discover if the market even wants or needs the service that you're offering or not, so you can alter course as you go. So it's not like, I got to get my passion. I got to discover my passion, my purpose, my message, my branding, get all this built up perfectly before I release it to the world. I spent so much time doing that. And nowadays it's more like, hey, let's try this out. Launch this. If there's crickets, then I go, okay, that don't work. Next. And crickets meaning like if no one's biting, then I don't. It's nothing personal. It's just express, give it a shot, almost like launch it and then see what happens, and then refine it as you go versus waiting and stuck in that. I did a podcast thing or a group thing recently. It was called Procrastination and Perfectionism. And basically it's that, you get stuck in the perfectionism and then you procrastinate and nothing ever happens. So if you can get past that and just say, you know what, no matter what this looks like to the outside world, if I don't get the numbers I want, if people think I'm a loser because my launch didn't go so well, so be it. Like, I love myself, I value myself, and it's okay for me to poke around a little bit in the marketplace to see what people want and need.
I absolutely love that and totally agree with it, because I think following the passion, following the clarity, following what feels the best in the time was a really important part of my journey too. And I see that when people follow that, you kind of discover what is on the other side of it. Sometimes you never know what people are hungry for or what you're really talented at until you throw yourself into something. I went to school for energy medicine, for health coaching, for all of these different healing modalities. And it wasn't until I had a full health coaching practice and I found that I ended up spending the majority of my time talking to people about their businesses, and found that was like the thing I was the most excited about, did I realize that I really wanted to help people grow their businesses. But I had to spend 4 years in school for integrative medicine in order to get to that.
Yes. So often that the path or the purpose, even the purpose, a lot of people get stuck on trying to say, okay, so we're talking about passion and purpose, and I've heard it 100 times from all these different sources, just align with your passion, and that's the key. And so then they actually use that as a crutch or a crippling mechanism to be like, okay, I can't move forward yet because I haven't discovered my passion or my purpose. It's not worth waiting for that. So if instead you say, where does my heart want to go right now? How could I serve right now? And that may be the stepping stone. Your purpose isn't a landing place. It's not an arrival. It's more like the horizon. You look out and you say, where would I most like to go? Who would I most like to serve? What really makes my heart sing right now? And that don't mean that you're going to land on the one and only true love of your life purpose that will last for time and all eternity. It may be more like, this is a stepping stone to bring me to the next stage. It might be you think that you're there to teach health, but that was just the first horizon that was leading you to something bigger than that, because it's great to help people with health. That's really important. And there's a lot of health coaches out there. But if later on that leads you to, you know what, how many people could I influence and help thrive that are passionate, that are doing what they love, that do have tremendous gifts, that have the ability to influence the world? And you look at the impact there. If you influence 1,000 people in a positive manner, who influence 1,000 people in a positive manner, you just influenced 1 million people, because you're now helping those with gifts, talents, and abilities and heart to fully thrive and shine and make their impact in the world. You made a much greater impact where you're at now versus where you used to be. And it's all as a result, though, of originally just following that heart song, that frequency, like you tuned into the radio station that was your wave, that was guiding you all along to your purpose, which is ever changing. And if you get hung up on one and clinging to it, then you make it so far, but you don't get to go to the next level. Versus if we wait till we get it dialed in perfect, we're never going to get there. So you just jump in the pool. You don't keep reading. If you want to swim, you don't keep reading books on swimming. You maybe read and do some research, figure out a few things, watch a YouTube video, hop in the pool and test it out. And then you see what happens from there. But And
if you swallow a little water, that's okay.
Yeah, that's okay.
Maybe just don't dive into the deep end quite yet, just take it easy. What you guys are talking about, it's really cool. When I first got into business, especially with Kamala, I was struggling. I was having a really hard time. I wanted to be a relationship coach. I had done work with one of the biggest research studies in the United States on relationships, and was really qualified to do the work, but to do it on my own was a completely different ballgame. And I remember Kamala saying, you're a businessman now, and you're going to be a businessman. And I'd say, no, I'm not. No, I'm not a business person. I'm a guy who's a relationship coach who has a business as a coach, but I'm not a business person, And I really argued with her about that now. And for me, I felt this sense that maybe one of you listening right now, and you're still here with us. And maybe I don't know, I just feel this calling to talk about how when I got into business, especially when Kamala was educating me and teaching me about what business was, I was very resistant to this idea that business and spirituality could blend, and that somehow I was going to lose myself if I started identifying as somebody who charged people, and I identified as somebody who had a business to run, and I needed to make profits, and I needed to be able to ask for money. I needed to be okay with that. And also, I remember speaking to my counselor once, and I was visiting an NLP hypnotherapist counselor, and I remember telling her, I said, I kind of feel like a prostitute a little bit. Like I'd get to do this really beautiful thing with somebody where I talk to them about their relationships and their marriage and their children, and I find out all these things that are just some of the most, for me, the biggest honor and biggest privilege to sit and go that deep with someone. And then I got to ask them for money, and I feel really awkward around that, and I don't like doing that. And I remember having to do a lot of work around that. And now, being where I'm at, somebody asked me just yesterday on one of the interviews, what's been one of the biggest learning things that you've had out of business? And what I responded with was, business is a very spiritual thing, and it's incredibly personal. It's not this cold, separate thing from me, but in fact, business has been one of the greatest teachers and healers that no other modality has ever been able to really fully touch. I've been able to learn that people, they get really anxious, or people behave differently when there's money involved. And what I've learned through that is that's not personal. Some of that's their own stuff, and some of that's my own stuff. And I get to look at that. So now business is integrated as just part of my mission and journey. And it's not this separate thing. And so is money, and accepting money, and being able to give money, and being able to talk about it. And for me, it's just another aspect of creating this whole person, this whole best version of Luis, who gets to experience the full dynamic expression of life. For me, that's a really beautiful thing to talk about. And it's just so fantastic to share that with you, and to share that with the audience, and to share that with Kamala, and to say that she's really helped me get there to a point where I'm just not scared like I used to be.
Such a beautiful share, and such an important distinction. There is a big disconnect that I've experienced in realms of, I'll go to retreats or different meditation retreats and whatever. I have a lot of hippie friends and new age friends and healers and people that with big hearts and tremendous abilities, but they have this resistance to money. They have this resistance to charging. They have this resistance to marketing and sales, and they stay broke, and they don't have the ability to make that change they want. And then on the flip side, we have these, people. I have plenty of friends that make all the money in the world. They know everything there. No one knows everything there is to know about anything, but they have all kinds of knowledge and skill sets around marketing, sales, money, and they easily go out and constantly thrive financially, but spiritually they're not fulfilled, and emotionally they're not fulfilled and edified. And so bridging the gap between those two worlds, I think, is absolutely critical, and helping people to realize what you just said, that business is a key spiritual path. If you want to face, I believe that the ultimate spiritual practice is to love all of the unloved places within us. I believe that literally solves every issue in the world: war, scarcity, lack, starvation, like pretty much everything. The root of it is self-love. And so you want to face some unloved places within you, charge someone some money and see what surfaces in you, and see if you can learn from that. And then maybe try raising the price that you charge, and maybe then try turning away somebody who wants your help but isn't willing to provide value, and that you would be enabling versus serving. Or in another moment, maybe give it away for free because you know that it's actually of service. So it's not a rule that you have to charge a certain way every single time, but it is a huge opportunity to learn and to grow when you notice energy uprise or a trigger or a big resistance to charging or being rejected. There's so many layers that business brings up that if you were to not go into business for fear of those things, man, you would miss out on so much. And I almost wonder, like, I view my 3 primary paths to enlightenment or, spirituality or to reaching my greatest potential, however you want to say that. 1, being married. 2, and not any specific order. I'm not prioritizing these in like, this is more than that. I don't know that. But my top 3 would be like being married, being in business, and being a father. But along the lines of, since we're on the topic of business, passion, profits, things like that, definitely it is a spiritual opportunity to really come to a whole place within you by just facing those fears and unloved places, leaning into them, bringing love to them, and then stretching a little further next time, while always remaining connected with your heart and truly making a positive contribution, not just chasing money.
Wow. We have been here with Christopher John Stubbs. It's been such a pleasure to have you all here listening in. And as always, we've got some incredible resources for you and a way to connect with Christopher and what he has to offer at thrivinglaunch.com. We'll see you all there. Keep thriving, everyone. You've been listening to the Thriving Launch podcast. For books and resources related to today's episode, make sure to head over to thrivinglaunch.com. We'll see you there. Be sure to tune in to our next episode with Preston Smiles, where we're going to talk about living full out. And if you've enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe to the show and leave a rating.